Hello there. In this class we are going to be seeing some computer hardware, starting with the mouse and the touchpad. Both actually serve the same purpose, but both are physically different from each other. So what about mouse and touchpad? Now one thing about both of them is that both of them are called pointing device. Why are we calling them pointing device? Because we are using them to point on a specific part of our computer screen. If you have noticed, using the mouse or the touchpad, we have been pointing on a specific part of the computer screen, right? So the mouse and touchpad both are called pointing device. That is why. So mouse is basically an external device. Normally it's used with desktops, but we can also use them with laptops too. Touchpads are basically internal device which are embedded in laptops, but we can also use them externally too. We can buy some touchpads, and we can also add them to our desktops. And then we can also work with them. Now a mouse, the older mouses looked somehow like this, which had balls inside it, which had a single ball inside it, which was used to perform the navigation of the pointer that we see on the screen. And apart from that, the mostly used mouses that we are using right now are using optical technology. Basically they are using laser lights for navigation. Apart from that, a touchpad somehow looks like this. Mostly it has two buttons here. One is somewhere right here and one is somewhere right here. One acts as the left click and one acts as the right click. Most of the time there are also buttons on the top of this touchpad. So both have, mostly at least both have two buttons. Now one more thing about any hardware is that any hardware in the computer must have a device driver that will tell the operating system that how this device will be used with the computer. So we will be discussing this driver thing in our succeeding lectures too. Now there are some things here. I have mentioned these. If you are literally not familiar with the computer or with the touchpads and all, I have created these notes for you guys. You can access these notes from the drive link that I have given in the description. Now what happens when you press the left button of the touchpad, what happens when you press the right button, when you tap one finger on the touchpad, when you tap two fingers, when you drag finger, and all these are all discussed here. You can find them in the notes from our drive link that I have put in my description. Now again, these are the same things. If you want to control a mouse, what happens when you left click, what happens when you right click, what happens when you click and drag, what happens when you use the wheel or the scroller on your mouse. So these are the things. Now if you want to see the settings of your mouse or your touchpad, you can simply go to control panel and then you can go to mouse. That I'll show you right here. I can just go to the search bar here. I can write control panel. I clicked on it, and if you can see in the first column, and if you see on the 6th row, you can see mouse here. You can simply click on mouse and it will show the the touchpad or the buttons or the pointers or the pointer options, the wheels, everything. You will find out the settings right here. So this is how you can access the settings of the touchpad or the mouse. If you want to change the size of the pointer, if you change the pointer itself, if you just want to change the speed of the touchpad or the sensitivity of the touchpad or sensitivity of the mouse, you can set all of these things from there. So these are the mouse and touchpad settings. So apart from that, one more thing that I discussed earlier is that every device has a driver in computer. Now we know that an operating system controls a computer. Now if you are trying to attach any device with the computer, this device must be known by this operating system. Most of the time this is not the case, so that is why operating system use an additional software, that is what we called a driver, that comes with every software, every hardware, whichever you are trying to add with your computer. Mostly you have seen that if you want to connect a printer with your computer, you would need a driver. Just like that, if you want to connect your device with the internet, you will also need a driver in that case too. So this is a software that you are going to be needing. Now if you want to see the drivers and all, if you want to change, update or delete or install the drivers in your computer, you can simply right click on PC. You can go to device manager, or you can go to the manage, and there you can find out the mouse drivers. Or if you are trying to find out any other driver too, you can find out the device there and you can update the drivers of the device. Now next device that we have is also an input device, which is what we call a keyboard. Now a keyboard is simply a input device that we use to give mostly data or instruction to the computer. A keyboard, the normal keyboard that we are using is this QWERTY keyboard. Why are we calling it QWERTY? Because this, if you see this one, if you look at this one, this is actually the third row of the keyboard, QWERTY. Below this was ASDF, if you remember. So this is why we call it the QWERTY format of the keyboard. Now based on the functions, a keyboard is basically divided into a few groups. This part that you can see here, which is purple, this part is called the function keys. These are the function keys. We normally use them by while clicking the function button that is somewhere right here mostly. So these have different functions. It varies from company to company or brand to brand. Apart from that, we also have some control key like caps lock, like escape button, like control, like shift, like window, and all of these are called control keys. We have got some function keys that I already discussed. We have got some typing keys, the numbers that we have here, the alphabets that we have here, and all the other special characters that we see here. All of them are called the alphanumeric keys or the typing keys. We have got some navigation keys, the arrows that we have here, the page down, the page up, and all of these are the navigation keys. Mostly on a generic keyboard you will find another calculator like keyboard here, which contains the numbers, which is quite handy when you are dealing with numbers. Normally you have some indicator lights here which are connected to the locks, just like the page lock, just like the number lock, just like the caps lock. So these are the lights. So this is how a basic keyboard looks like. I have got some other information here too. If you want to access these, again you can go to the description and you can find out these notes from there. Apart from that, the third part of hardware that we are going to be discussing is going to be monitors and printers. Now monitors and printers, both of them are output devices. It means that computer uses these devices to give the data back to the user. Now what does a monitor do and what does a printer do? Basic difference between monitor and printer is that the monitor gives a soft copy output, which means that you can't actually touch that output. On the other hand, a printer gives a hard copy output, which means that it needs a proper physical paper that it will draw the message or the data on that paper. So if you are using a monitor, simply a monitor is the screen that we are attaching with a computer. Mostly in laptops it's built in, attached with the laptop. And a monitor can be of three types. The old ones, the fat ones that we normally used in our childhood, is called the CRT monitor, which means cathode rays tube monitor. Most of the monitors nowadays are LCD monitors or LED monitors. LCD is the liquid crystal display and LED is the light emitting diode, which is properly electronic device because transistors and all are used here. So mostly this one is preferred by the current users. Apart from that, printers can also be non-impact printers or impact printers. The non-impact printers are the printers where the paper is not touching the actual printing device. On the other hand, the impact printer is a printer where the image is printed on the paper by punching on that. It means simply we can say that the paper is in contact with the printing device, and here the paper is not in contact with the printing device. So these are the mouses and the keyboards. The next ones that we are going to be discussing is speakers. The speakers are simply output devices which we use, or which the computer use to give audio data to the user. It can be internal or external depending upon the computer. It simply converts the digital signals that are inside the computer to analog signals to make it hearable by the users, because we only hear waves now, and waves are analog signals. So the computer is going to convert these digital signals to analog signals to make them hearable to us. So these are the speakers. Now we have completed the input devices and the output devices. So now we are going to be discussing some memories in computer. Now the most common memories, or we also call these primary memories, we also call them main memories, are two memories. one is going to be the RAM and the other one is going to be the ROM. RAM is basically random access memory. If you remember the block diagram that I showed you in, I think, first or second lecture, you saw that the RAM is actually the pathway to the CPU. If any data wants to go to the CPU, it goes to the RAM. So basically RAM can store data and instruction. Now it can definitely store data here. And now how can it store an instruction here? Now if you have seen the definition of a software, we said that software is a set of instructions. So a software can also be stored in the RAM. That is why we are saying that an instruction can also be stored in the RAM. Now one more thing is that the storage is going to be temporarily here. The storage will not be permanent inside the RAM. Anything goes in the RAM will definitely come out after some amount of time. It provides simply data to it serves data to the CPU. That is the most important task of the RAM. Data comes here for execution. Whichever data comes here, its goal is going to be reaching the CPU, which means the execution of the data. CPU picks data randomly from this RAM. That is why we are calling it random access memory. Why? Because the CPU is accessing data randomly from the RAM, and it is definitely faster than the other memories. Why? Because it is way too near to the CPU. If you compare it with the hard disk, which is, let's say, here, so it's going to take time to fetch data from here to the CPU. So this is why we say that the RAM is way too faster than the hard disk or any other device that I have here. So this is RAM. Apart from that, I have one more device, which is what I call a ROM, which you might have heard of it, read only memory. So it's a device which stores data permanently. This is not going to be storing data temporarily. There's a misconception of this thing. Mostly in Pakistan, the definitions are a little bit confusing and ambiguous, but it always stores data permanently. So what does it stores actually? So if you see the memories, different memories serve different purpose. This memory stores the firmware. Now what's the firmware? Firmware is a software that is installed in a computer by the producer company. Firmware is going to be that software that is installed in a computer by the producer company. Let's say if you have a software that is pre-installed in your computer, let's say HP has installed it while creating it, we can say that software is a firmware. So ROM stores firmware. The most common firmware that is stored in the in the ROM is the BIOS, the basic input output system. That is what we see when we boot our computer on. We normally see a black screen in our computer where we have got only a few functional keys that work at that time. So this is BIOS. Apart from that, it also stores bootstrapper or bootstrap file, which is used to boot the operating system too. So these two are the primary memories or the main memories that we have in our computer. Apart from that, we also have some secondary memories which are mostly used for permanent storage of our data. Now the older ones mostly used hard disk, and the newer ones are currently using SSDs, solid state drives. Now let's see the difference. Now hard disks and solid state drives, mostly these are the electronic ones, these were mechanical ones. So both of these are called secondary storage devices. Why? Because they are used to store data permanently. Apart from that, hard disk are mechanical storage devices. It means that inside a hard disk they are going to be performed some sort of movement which can create heat, which can consume more of the energy, electrical energy. So mostly these are not recommended right now. They store data permanently. Definitely hard disk is a set of disks. Now as you can see here by the name hard disk, it means that this is going to contain some disks. So a normal hard disk will contain a few disks inside it which will store the data. On the other hand, if we see the solid state drives or the SSDs, these are also devices, but they don't actually have any disk or any mechanical procedure phenomena occurring inside it. These are actually electronical components inside stored in the SSD, which are trying to store the data. So that is why it is quite faster to be accessed, and currently everyone is using SSDs right now. So apart from that, there are some more memories that we we have been using since our childhood, which are pretty much rare in these days, which are CDs and DVDs. Now what are CDs and DVDs? CDs are compact discs and DVDs are digital versatile discs. If you go back in time, CDs were created to store audio data and DVDs were created to store video data, and mostly we also called it digital video disc at the beginning. Now we call it digital versatile disc. CDs were pretty much smaller in size, not by the physical size, I'm saying the capacity was pretty much lesser, but the capacity of storage capacity of digital DVD were too good. And normally this is a single disc, and this is also a single disc that we see looks pretty much like this, and you can store data on both sides, or you can store data on one side. Mostly it's stored data on one side. Mostly the maximum size of a compact disc is I think 720 MB something, and the other ones maximum capacity I think goes up to 4 GBs too. So these are the memories that we have, that we normally used when we were kids and all, but normally you don't see these memories right now. So these were the hardwares that we normally have in our computer: the input devices, the output devices, and the memories. So I think this is enough for this class. We are going to be discussing more of these things. We will discuss the CPU in the next class. We will discuss that CPU comprehensively in the next class. So stay tuned with us.